Sirius Satellite Radio, live exclusive performances for our subscribers. This is something that you can only get by being on board with Sirius. Thank you so much, brand new Sirius subscribers, and to the group of musicians who call themselves, with just a twinkle in their eye, Matt Bianco. Matt Bianco, secret agent, superhero, whatever. Basia is our vocalist, along with Mark Riley, Danny White at the keyboard, many other musicians who are gathered today with percussion and brass. It's quite a crew that we've assembled
12 people.
12 people who are playing live at Sirius in a song we just heard there called "Say the Words." You guys have bounced around between London, Tokyo, New York City, including a gig at the very famous Beacon Theater on Upper Broadway in New York. Tell us about that experience.
Well, it was amazing for all of us because for Mark, first of all, he's here for the first time and in the States. And
Really?
His first tour.
Hold on, time out. Mark Riley, world-class musician, member of this group from the inception. You never made it to the U.S. of A.?
No, I mean, I came over about 86 or 85 to do a bit of promotion for our album, but I was told that Matt Bianco's music didn't fit in, so I went back.
I would go right on my heels and do the same thing, but you're welcomed with open arms this time around. Actually, now, let's not, lose sight of the fact that some serious hits have been associated with you guys in the past. And Basia, on your own, you had some success with some R&B things, including a wonderful cover of an Aretha Franklin song, right?
Yes, that's right. Well, she was my absolute heroine. You know, whoever sing, I think, adores Aretha Franklin. She's just epitome of everything, the best in music. But I don't try to copy her, but I just thought this song, because I loved some of her songs, that's the one. Danny and I went on tour once, and we didn't have simply enough songs to perform because it was on the first album. So we did a medley of Aretha Franklin's songs, and people were they thought it was mad to do that, but it always went down so well. We did 3 songs, and
as a
that
medley.
was one of them. As a medley,
because now the hit that we're talking about, it's the Stevie Wonder tune called "Until You Come Back to Me." But now there were other songs that you put together in a medley.
Yes, the medley included also "Respect," which we always finish the medley with, and "Baby, Baby, Baby, I Love You." I think that's the title. Yeah. So we started with I Say a Little Prayer, of course. Yeah. I Say a Little Prayer too. But we finished with "Respect," and of course people were up on their feet because that was the biggest hit here.
You should have done this medley and put it out as a record. It would have been like #1 with a bullet. How could it not?
Don't know.
Oh no, absolutely. It
was great fun, but until you come back to me, people commented that it sounded good in my voice, so I don't think we would have dared otherwise if we didn't test the water on live tour, and the reaction was so good that finally we went to the studio, and for the second album we recorded "Until You Come Back to Me," our own version, which was slightly different, of course, but it's also, of course, a sign of respect to Stevie Wonder, who we consider, I would say, the best songwriter of all time. So it's just we honored Aretha and Stevie in the same one song.
Yeah, "Time and Tide" did so well.
Oh yes, we've been very lucky. Americans really took to heart some of those songs that we've recorded in the past. "Time and Tide," "Promises," "New Day for You," "Cruising for Bruising." These were the most successful, and we still play them live.
Sure. Well, now the 80s have come around to be a time to look back on and assess, and I think people realize in retrospect, there's been some harsh stuff in the world in the last bunch of years, and the 80s are pretty innocent all of a sudden by comparison.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So and it was a fat time all around, although there was a lot of bad housekeeping going on politically, economically, in a lot of corners. Maybe we didn't realize how good we had it at that time. Any other thoughts about the 80s experience and being swept up in the energy of that time?
I thought musically, I thought it was a great time. There was a lot of bands getting together, doing all kinds of different music. It wasn't so, the marketing of it wasn't so sort of conservative, or the music wasn't so conservative, I don't think, as it is today. But it's changing. Things like we're doing, songs are becoming more organic, and I don't know.
I got to ask you if you agree with me on this, that it was the last age of across-the-board, all-access pop music.
Yeah, I think
Is that
Yeah.
fair, or am I
Yeah.
just
Yes.
being a stuck-up old guy here who doesn't think that rap or heavy metal is pop music in the same way? And I'm just going to mention a few people who fell between the cracks that I thought were super, in the way that Alison Moyet was pop music, in the way that Meet Danny Wilson was the pop
yes.
band that went nowhere that should have gone everywhere.
Yeah.
You know,
true.
I mean, this is an
It's true.
interesting time for pop,
Yeah.
which seemed to be accessible to everybody on a lot of different levels, on a rock level, on an R&B level, even on a jazz level. You know, it was quite a time, believe it or not. And there was some junk. You know, every era had its mistakes, its misfires.
Absolutely. When we came out in, the first album, we also thought that we're not going to fit in anywhere because it was 84 when our record came out, and there was new romantics all over England, Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, this
Yeah.
kind of, all these dressed up kind of bands and overly made up and stuff, and our style of music really didn't fit in at all. So it was a shock to us that first album did very well in Europe, and our first single went straight to the charts within a few weeks or something, which was, it has never happened since, really, that
But the
quickly.
groove was there, and I'll tell you a
Yeah.
story about someone who played, and so well, right here in this room, Bluey with Mesa Leak
Incognito.
and Incognito.
Yeah.
Bluey said that Incognito, as a kind of an R&B influenced jazz groove band, was excited by this sort of white R&B pop that was coming out of England at the time, because it was just coming out of the Clash and the Sex Pistols. It was the first time that there was a danceable pop movement out of the UK since the days of like the British invasion, and he and those musicians had a lot to do with each other, and they all dug jazz and jazz grooves, even though they went out and played basically disco 4/4 time, dance till you drop kind of music,
Yes.
rave up music, in other words.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's probably right. They did very well as a result of it, because Incognito was, oh my gosh, in the 90s at the end of
Yeah.
80s, were extremely successful. in
I think
England.
they liked a lot of the jazz funk era, sort of, Herbie Hancock, Roy Ayers, Crusaders,
Sure.
all that stuff, and sort of bringing it into dance beats to go with it and to bring it up to date. I mean, and then Soul to Soul took it a stage
Oh, yes,
further,
it's
and
also-
That's
it was
right.
a kind of British black movement, dance.
Very interesting scene.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I tell you, Duran Duran hung out in this particular studio not too long ago and looked no worse for wear, too. what goes around comes around. Let's do one more. We're talking about a live performance here for our Sirius Satellite Radio subscribers exclusively. You can only hear this music performed on Sirius. It is the new sound of Matt Bianco, Basia, and this next one called Ronnie's Samba underscores what Mark just said a moment ago about organic music. All this pop notwithstanding that we talked about, you guys have gotten back to roots more so than ever before with this particular new recording. The sound of the record from a technical standpoint is luscious. There is nothing produced sounding about any of the music. It sounds like you guys are right in the room. You apparently kept a minimalist approach in recording this album, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's listening to our first album, which we did when we started this. It sounded kind of naive. You can hear that sort of 80s sound.
Yeah.
And almost our 70s records that we hear a lot sounded much more up to date, because it sounded really nice.
That's interesting. No, it's true that the 80s stuff had a little bit of a glitzy, glossy quality, but that was the vogue in production at that time.
Synthesizers were everywhere.
You thought that the 70s stuff was more real sounding.
Absolutely, and also now with the technology, because we did a lot of stuff on computer, and now it's advanced so much. I think in the 80s when new equipment came out, it's like, let's use it. And so it's
Let's overuse it.
quite electronic and not always great. But now it's come full circle. You can create that organic sound on computers just by the way you record it, and it just suits our music. It's got a lot more harmonic qualities to it if it's live and that organic sound.
Well, here now, live and with only some finely tuned microphones to augment the experience. Here is the sound, absolutely live, of Matt Bianco, Basia, and Ronnie's Samba on Sirius.